stop, what if the person you've been trying to forget has never truly left because the story isn't finished? What if the age difference you fear isn't the real obstacle, but the fear living inside you is? Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you see love, destiny, and the strange encounter that refuses to disappear from your mind. Before we go any further, answer honestly. Have you ever met someone who felt strangely familiar? Someone who seemed to know parts of you that even you had never explored? If your answer is yes, write "I listen" in the comments, not for anyone else, for yourself. Because acknowledging a truth is often the first step toward understanding it. People often believe that love begins the moment two eyes meet, a conversation starts, or a shared laugh creates an undeniable spark. Yet the deepest forms of love rarely announce themselves in such obvious ways. They begin quietly beneath the surface of conscious awareness, long before the mind can organize what the heart has already sensed. This is why some encounters feel strangely familiar from the very first moment. You cannot explain why a particular person captures your attention so completely because the experience does not originate in reason. It emerges from a place within you that has been silently waiting for recognition. The conscious mind searches for practical explanations, appearance, personality, timing, or coincidence. But these explanations often arrive after the feeling has already taken root. Love, in its earliest form, is not a decision, but a recognition, as though something forgotten has suddenly remembered itself. This recognition does not mean that two people are destined to remain together forever, nor does it guarantee a flawless relationship. Instead, it signals that someone has entered your life carrying the potential to reveal parts of yourself that have remained hidden. Certain people awaken courage you did not know you possessed. Others expose fears you spent years trying to ignore. Their presence becomes a mirror reflecting both your strengths and your unresolved conflicts. That is why authentic love often feels both comforting and unsettling at the same time. It invites you to step beyond familiar patterns and confront truths that ordinary relationships may never uncover. You begin to notice that your reactions become more intense, your thoughts more persistent, and your emotions more revealing. What appears to be attraction on the surface is often an invitation to deeper self-understanding. The person before you becomes significant, not simply because of who they are, but because of what their presence uncovers within you. When love begins in this way, it is less about possession and more about transformation. It asks you to see beyond appearances, to question old assumptions, and to recognize that the most meaningful connections often begin long before the intellect is able to explain why they matter. The human mind has a remarkable habit of resisting what it cannot immediately explain. When an unexpected connection forms, especially between two people separated by a noticeable age difference, the first response is often not curiosity, but doubt. Society has trained us to measure relationships by visible standards before we ever consider their invisible foundations. We are taught to notice birthdays, appearances, and public expectations, while paying far less attention to emotional maturity, shared values, or the quiet understanding that can exist between two individuals. Because of this conditioning, the age difference quickly becomes the center of attention, even when it may not be the source of discomfort. The number itself is simple. What surrounds it is far more complex. It awakens fears of judgment, rejection, misunderstanding, and uncertainty. These fears often speak louder than the relationship itself, creating an inner conflict that has little to do with genuine affection. At the same time, an unusual connection can reveal hidden assumptions that have remained buried for years. You may begin asking yourself whether your feelings are authentic or merely a reaction to something unresolved within you. You might question whether you are seeking wisdom, security, admiration, excitement, or validation rather than truly seeing the other person as they are. These questions are not signs that the relationship is false. They are invitations to examine your own inner world with honesty. Every meaningful relationship has the power to expose beliefs you never realized you carried. The age difference simply makes those beliefs impossible to ignore because it challenges familiar ideas about what love is supposed to look like. Some people walk away from such a connection because they fear social opinion more than personal truth. Others rush into it without carefully examining their motives. Neither response leads to genuine understanding. The deeper task is to distinguish between fear created by external expectations and wisdom born from thoughtful reflection. Only then can you recognize whether the bond is rooted in mutual respect, responsibility, and authentic care, or whether it is being shaped by projection, fantasy, or unmet emotional needs that seek expression through another person. People often assume that maturity arrives automatically with the passing of years, but time and growth are not the same thing. A person can accumulate decades of experience without ever learning how to confront fear, accept responsibility, or understand their own emotions. Another may possess fewer years, yet demonstrate remarkable patience, empathy, self-awareness, and resilience because they have chosen to learn from life's challenges rather than simply endure them. This is why genuine connection cannot be measured by age alone. It is measured by the quality of character each person brings into the relationship. Emotional maturity reveals itself through consistent actions, honest communication, accountability, and the willingness to grow together instead of trying to control one another. These qualities are not guaranteed by a birth date. They are developed through reflection, humility, and experience that has been thoughtfully integrated. When two people meet, what sustains their bond is rarely the number of years between them. It is their ability to understand one another beyond appearances. A relationship flourishes when both individuals can listen without immediately defending themselves, disagree without disrespect, and support one another without losing their own identity. These are signs of psychological maturity rather than chronological age. One person may offer the enthusiasm to explore new possibilities, while the other contributes perspective gained through experience. Neither role is inherently tied to being younger or older. Human beings are far more complex than the labels society assigns to them. A younger person may possess extraordinary emotional stability, while an older person may still struggle with insecurity, impulsiveness, or unresolved wounds. Likewise, an older individual may embody wisdom and compassion, while a younger partner brings creativity, adaptability, and fresh insight. When these qualities are shared with mutual respect rather than superiority, the relationship becomes a place where both people continue to evolve. This perspective does not suggest that every relationship with an age difference is healthy or destined to succeed. Every relationship deserves careful evaluation based on trust, respect, equality, and shared responsibility. The essential question is not how many years separate two lives, but whether both individuals encourage each other to become more honest, more compassionate, and more responsible. A meaningful relationship is revealed through the depth of its character, the consistency of its actions, and the willingness of both people to face reality together with integrity, rather than relying on assumptions based solely on age. Every meaningful relationship carries a hidden purpose that extends beyond companionship. While most people believe they choose another person simply because of attraction, compatibility, or shared interests, the deeper reality is that significant relationships often reveal dimensions of the self that have remained unseen. Another person becomes a mirror, not because they perfectly reflect your personality, but because their presence uncovers your hidden emotions, forgotten memories, unconscious habits, and unexamined beliefs. You begin to notice reactions that seem larger than the circumstances themselves. A simple conversation may evoke unexpected joy, fear, jealousy, peace, or vulnerability. These emotional responses are rarely created by the other person alone. More often they expose parts of your inner world that have been waiting to be acknowledged. What you experience in them frequently points towards something unresolved or undiscovered within yourself. This is why some people enter your life and immediately change the way you see yourself. They may challenge your assumptions, question your certainty, or awaken qualities you never realized were present. Around them, you may discover courage where you once found hesitation, compassion where you expected resentment, or insecurity where you believed you were completely confident. Their influence is not magical, it is reflective. They illuminate what has always existed beneath the surface of your awareness. In the same way a still lake reveals a clear reflection only when the water is calm, meaningful relationships reveal the hidden landscape of the mind when you are willing to observe your reactions honestly, rather than blame or idealize the other person. The greatest mistake is assuming that every intense feeling originates entirely from the person standing before you. Sometimes admiration contains a longing for qualities you wish to develop within yourself. Sometimes frustration reveals a wound that existed long before the relationship began. Sometimes deep affection uncovers your capacity for trust after years of emotional distance. The relationship becomes valuable because it exposes truths that ordinary routines often conceal. Instead of asking only who the other person is, a wiser question is what their presence is teaching you about yourself. Every emotional response becomes an invitation to greater self-awareness. Every conflict becomes an opportunity to examine old patterns. Every moment of genuine connection encourages a deeper understanding of your own character, reminding you that the most transformative relationships do not merely bring two people together, they reveal the unseen dimensions that shape how each person loves, fears, hopes, and grows. If this message is helping you see your own life more clearly, pause for 1 second, subscribe, and share this with someone who has been questioning a connection they cannot explain. Sometimes the right message reaches a person exactly when they are ready to hear it. One of the quietest yet most powerful forces shaping human relationships is the fear of judgment. Many people imagine that their greatest obstacle is the opinion of others, but the deeper struggle often exists within themselves. Long before a single criticism is spoken, the mind begins creating imagined conversations, anticipated rejection, and invisible barriers. It predicts disapproval from family, friends, or society, and these expectations gradually become louder than the genuine feelings of the heart. Instead of asking, "What is true?" the mind repeatedly asks, "What will everyone think?" In that moment, external voices begin to replace inner honesty. Decisions become guided by anxiety rather than understanding, and fear starts wearing the disguise of wisdom. What appears to be caution is sometimes nothing more than the desire to avoid discomfort at any cost. This fear becomes especially intense when a relationship does not fit familiar expectations. Whether the difference involves age, background, culture, or life experience, anything that challenges accepted norms can awaken an instinctive desire to seek approval before trusting personal experience. People begin doubting their own perceptions, not because the connection lacks meaning, but because they have learned to value acceptance over authenticity. The opinions of strangers, many of whom know nothing about the relationship, are granted greater authority than the quiet observations of those actually living it. This creates a painful inner conflict. One part longs to explore the connection honestly, while another remains imprisoned by imagined consequences. The result is emotional paralysis, where fear prevents genuine reflection and replaces it with endless second-guessing. Yet the heart speaks in a language very different from fear. It does not demand impulsive decisions or reckless certainty. Instead, it invites careful attention to qualities that truly matter: respect, trust, responsibility, compassion, and mutual growth. These are realities that cannot be measured by public opinion. A crowd may celebrate a relationship that is deeply unhealthy or condemn one that quietly nurtures both people into becoming wiser and more compassionate. The majority is not always the measure of truth. This does not mean every unconventional relationship is right, nor that criticism should automatically be ignored. It means that genuine discernment requires looking beyond appearances and beyond the noise of collective judgment. Only by confronting the fear of disapproval can a person begin to hear the quieter voice of conscience, where honest reflection replaces borrowed opinions and authentic understanding becomes possible. Not every powerful emotional connection is meant to become a lifelong relationship, and recognizing this truth requires wisdom rather than disappointment. Human beings often assume that intensity is proof of permanence. When someone enters your life and stirs emotions unlike anything you have experienced before, it is tempting to believe that such a connection must last forever. Yet intensity and endurance are not the same. A storm can transform an entire landscape in a single night, while a quiet river shapes the earth over many years. Both are powerful, but they serve different purposes. In the same way, some relationships arrive to remain, while others arrive to awaken, challenge, or teach. Their value does not depend solely on how long they last, but on what they reveal about who you are and who you are becoming. Discernment begins when you stop asking only how strongly you feel and start asking why you feel it. Strong attraction can emerge from admiration, loneliness, curiosity, shared wounds, or a longing for qualities you believe are missing within yourself. These emotions are real, but they do not automatically indicate lasting compatibility. A relationship capable of enduring life's inevitable challenges must be built on more than emotional excitement. It requires mutual respect, honest communication, emotional responsibility, patience, and a willingness to grow through discomfort rather than escape from it. Without these foundations, even the most passionate connection can slowly dissolve as everyday reality replaces idealized expectations. Feelings may open the door, but character determines whether two people can continue walking together. There is also a tendency to mistake every meaningful encounter for destiny simply because it changes you. Yet, transformation does not always require permanence. Some people appear at precisely the moment they are needed, offering encouragement, perspective, healing, or a difficult lesson that redirects the course of your life. Once that lesson has been learned, the relationship may naturally change or come to an end. This does not diminish its significance. Its purpose may have been fulfilled. Clinging to every connection out of fear of loss can prevent you from understanding what it was truly meant to teach. Discernment invites you to appreciate both presence and departure with equal honesty. It encourages you to observe whether the relationship continues to nurture integrity, compassion, responsibility, and mutual growth, or whether it survives only because of fear, habit, or the inability to let go of an experience that once felt extraordinary. A relationship reveals its deepest value, not through dramatic declarations or fleeting emotions, but through the quiet changes it brings into the lives of the people involved. Genuine love is not measured by how intensely two people feel in a single moment, but by whether they gradually become wiser, more responsible, and more compassionate because of one another's presence. A healthy relationship does not demand that one person shrink so the other can feel secure. Instead, it creates an environment where both individuals are encouraged to grow without losing their sense of identity. Each person becomes a source of strength rather than a source of dependency, inspiring the other to face challenges with greater courage, patience, and honesty. Over time, this shared growth becomes far more meaningful than the excitement that first brought them together. Wisdom within a relationship appears through everyday choices rather than extraordinary moments. It is found in the willingness to listen before reacting, to admit mistakes without pride, and to approach disagreements with respect instead of hostility. Responsibility is expressed by keeping promises, accepting the consequences of one's actions, and recognizing that trust is built through consistency rather than grand gestures. Compassion grows when both people learn to understand each other's fears, limitations, and vulnerabilities without using them as weapons. These qualities require effort, humility, and emotional maturity. They cannot be created by attraction alone, nor can they be sustained by passion without character. As these virtues deepen, the relationship gradually transforms into a place where both individuals feel safe enough to become more authentic versions of themselves. This is why every meaningful connection deserves careful observation instead of immediate judgment or blind idealization. It is not enough to ask whether the relationship feels exciting or whether it appears acceptable to others. The more important question is what kind of people the relationship is helping each person become. Does it encourage honesty instead of deception? Does it strengthen integrity rather than compromise it? Does it cultivate patience where there was once impulsiveness, humility where there was once arrogance, and understanding where there was once fear? A relationship that consistently inspires these changes possesses a depth that cannot be measured by outward appearances alone. Growth is rarely comfortable, yet it is often the clearest sign that the connection is contributing to the development of both individuals, allowing love to become not merely an emotion, but a path toward greater wisdom, responsibility, and compassion. One of the greatest challenges in human life is learning to distinguish the noise of the outside world from the quiet voice of inner understanding. Most people spend years seeking approval, advice, and certainty from others, believing that the answers to life's most important questions can be found through public opinion or social acceptance. While guidance from trusted people can be valuable, there comes a point where every individual must examine their own motives with complete honesty. A relationship, especially one that challenges expectations, cannot be understood solely through the judgments of observers who see only fragments of the story. The deepest truths are rarely discovered by following the loudest voices. They emerge through patient reflection, sincere self-examination, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable questions without immediately searching for convenient answers. Listening beyond external opinions does not mean ignoring wisdom or rejecting thoughtful counsel. It means refusing to allow fear, prejudice, or social pressure to replace your own careful discernment. Many people mistake conformity for wisdom because it feels safer to agree with the majority than to explore an uncertain path. Yet history repeatedly shows that what society accepts at one moment may later be questioned, and what it dismisses may eventually be understood differently. If every important decision is made only to avoid criticism, a person gradually loses the ability to recognize what genuinely aligns with their values. The opinions of others become louder than their own conscience, and borrowed beliefs quietly replace personal understanding. Examining your motives honestly is therefore essential. Ask yourself whether your feelings arise from genuine respect, mutual care, and a desire to grow together, or whether they are driven by loneliness, insecurity, admiration, fear of being alone, or the need for validation. Honest reflection requires courage, because it may reveal truths that are both comforting and difficult. You may discover that your connection is rooted in authenticity and deserves patient nurturing, or you may realize that your emotions have been shaped more by unmet needs than by genuine compatibility. Neither discovery is a failure. Both are opportunities to know yourself more deeply. The purpose of self-examination is not to justify every desire or condemn every unconventional feeling, but to ensure that your decisions are guided by clarity rather than impulse, by responsibility rather than fantasy, and by an honest understanding of both yourself and the person standing before you. Before you decide that this connection is either a miracle or a mistake, allow time to reveal what emotion alone cannot. The deepest truths rarely arrive with noise. They unfold through patience, honesty, and the courage to see both yourself and the other person without illusion. If this bond encourages greater wisdom, responsibility, compassion, and integrity, it is already serving a meaningful purpose, regardless of where the journey leads. If it is built only on fantasy or fear, reality will gently uncover that, as well. The measure of love has never been how extraordinary it feels in a single moment, but how faithfully it endures the test of truth. Listen carefully, not to the loud voices that rush to judge, nor to the restless impulses that demand immediate certainty, but to the quiet awareness that grows stronger each time you choose honesty over illusion. Some people enter your life to stay, others to awaken you, but every genuine encounter leaves behind a lesson that becomes part of the person you are destined to become. Perhaps the greatest gift is not simply finding someone who loves you, but becoming someone who can recognize love with clear eyes, an open heart, and unwavering wisdom.